only thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for joining us today. Visit online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. David, we talk a lot about education on this program, and the few times that we have presidents from a few of the very few good universities still in the U.S. that still teach good things, we talk about how important that is to choose those universities wisely. And one of those is of course, Liberty. We have Matt Staver and others from Liberty on all the time, Liberty University out in Virginia. We've got another special guest today that does a lot of work with Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty University, no question, we can get behind them in a heartbeat because of their worldview, their competence. David was chosen in the Bible to play for Saul because it said he was more skillful than any other player, and the Spirit of the Lord is upon him. And that's kind of like Liberty, that the academics are really, really high, but at the same time, God's welcome there. And so that's part of the education. But you've also got Colorado Christian. Of course, we've had Bill Armstrong on, the president there. Ohio Christian University is another great Christian school doing the right thing. Oklahoma Wesleyan University, Everett Piper, we've had him on. You have Ecclesia with Orrin Paris. Oklahoma, you've got Oral Roberts University, has been really solid. Pensacola Christian College in Florida. And, of course, we got College Plus that we promote through WallBuilders. So there's a lot of good things out there. But you're right, going to Liberty University, there's so many good things there. And one of the good things there is Major General Bob Dees, who had really a great career in the military. And he's now working at Liberty University, not only with military programs there, but he's also working and building just a good view of, he's got a great trilogy of books. It's a Resilience Trilogy, but his newest book is out now, Resilient Nations. We thought, it'd be really good to get Bob on and talk about his perspective and see what this new book's all about.
General Bob Dees, our special guest today. Stay with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Today, we heard that our founding fathers were largely atheists, agnostics, or deists. The writings of founding father Richard Henry Lee strongly refute that assertion. Richard Henry Lee was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he is specifically the man who made the motion in Congress that America separate from Great Britain. Following his death, his papers and correspondence, including numerous original handwritten letters from other prominent founding fathers, were passed on to his grandson. After having studied those letters, this was how the grandson described our founding fathers. He declared, "The wise and great men of those days were not ashamed publicly to confess the name of our blessed Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In behalf of the people, as their representatives and rulers, they acknowledged the sublime doctrine of His mediation."
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Back with us, our good friend, General Bob Dees, author of the Resilience Trilogy, and also Associate Vice President for Military Outreach out at Liberty University. Love you, General Dees, man. Love what you do, brother. We're just glad to have you back. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Rick, it's great to be back. I always applaud WallBuilders and what you guys are doing around the country.
Hey, before we get to the book, I got to tell you, we were out there for my son just graduated from Liberty in May, and I had no idea Liberty was doing such a huge expansion, massive building expansion. I mean, things seem to be going good there at Liberty.
Oh, it's incredible. First it's just God's hand of favor, and then the Liberty folks have a wonderful DNA, and they have an abundance mentality, and God is just blessing right and left. I think there's over $500 million worth of new construction occurring at Liberty. We have 102,000 plus students. 30,000 of those are military students, which thrills me to see Liberty reaching out to the military in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going great guns. A lot of fun.
Well, for you, what's the sweet spot there for you working with Liberty? I mean, you 35 years in the military. You've had every command position imaginable. You've done the private deal with Homeland Security and doing all the electronic warfare. Why the university setting now? What drew you to that, and what are you trying to accomplish there?
Well, as you know, a number of years back, I became very concerned about the historic high suicide rates in the military and post-traumatic stress disorder and all the mental and behavioral health issues. And so I went to Liberty University and said, hey, I think you have the heart, Liberty, to help the military. You're already doing a lot of that, but I think we can do even more. And so Liberty was kind to wrap their arms around my vision and include that and establish something called the Institute for Military Resilience. It's the nation's first-based Institute for Military Resilience, and we're putting the secret sauce. We're putting the person of Jesus back into the resilience equation that has become so popular within the military.
Yeah, I mean, when you came on, I guess it's been about a year ago when we talked about the suicide rates and just how difficult it is right now, and really a problem that's essentially been ignored by the media. Most Americans don't want to talk about it. This thing's got to be hit head on, not only to care for those that are defending us, but if we don't do that correctly, it seems to me we're going to lose the desire of our young people to want to go serve if they get this perception that it's all bad.
Of course, and there's a whole generation at risk, and these warriors have been at war intensely for the last decade plus, and so now many of them, tens of thousands of them, are coming home as we draw down our forces, and they need our help more than ever before. And so I'm just grateful to be part of Liberty University and their significant outreach to the military.
But and last question before we jump into the book, the best way, in the past we've talked about this, for folks at home that want to serve those members of the military when they come home and be able to minister in any way that they can, do you recommend them go to a particular place for resources, or do you just tell them, hey, just do what your heart tells you to do? What do you recommend there?
Yeah, well, a number of things. One, pray for our troops. Two, affirm our troops. But three, I think you need to roll up your sleeves and become more intentional, which requires getting educated a bit about the needs of our current military, and then aligning yourself with organizations. There's scads of organizations. I personally prefer faith-based organizations because I think there's real power, help, hope, and healing in the Christian faith that helps our people these days. So wherever your heart leads, that's a good statement, but just do it intentionally. It's more than just a high five at the airport. That's good, but that's not sufficient. We need to truly figure out how to wrap our arms around them. And clearly the churches are a source of light for the military. And so if you're a member of a church, and if nobody else is standing up, then you ought to stand up to be counted. Tell your pastor, I'll pioneer an effort to reach out to our military. And many times you find that the churches are full of the military. And I was in California speaking at a church, and there was a World War II veteran there, an Iwo Jima vet, and the pastor didn't even know he was in the congregation. So, we sort of need to milk the military out of our very midst, out of our neighborhoods, and help them first.
I love the way you put that, man. It's got to, it's got to be purposeful. You can't just, like I said, just whatever feels good. That's what's gotten us in trouble as a church. It's made us sit on the sideline. We've got to have a strategy and say, hey, we're going to actually go take action on this. And that brings us to the books, the Resilience Trilogy, Resilient Warriors, Leaders, and a Resilient Nation. The third installment of that now out. Tell us a little bit about how that's going.
Well, I'm thrilled by the way the book has turned out, Rick. It's been 3 books in 3 years, and we've built on this notion of resilience and the resilience life cycle. And the reality is that not only do we as individuals go through a resilience life cycle in our lives and as leaders, but nations have a life cycle. And we look at Rome as an example of a nation that declined. We look at all the common denominators of decline, and then look at Israel. And despite Israel's stiff-necked nature over its history, Israel has really been a resilient nation. They've recognized the evil of their ways. They've done an about-face. They've followed a God-honoring leader, and then they have, all together done the right thing. So that's a better model for the United States. And the question is, where is the United States today? I also introduced the concept of spiritual infrastructure as an element of national power, Rick. And bottom line is it's the ethics of our boardrooms, the education of our youth, the resilience of our citizens, the relevance of our places of worship, the proper retention of national history instead of historical revisionism, our respect for the rule of law, our adherence to constitutional foundations. All of these are intangibles which collectively are far more important than the tangible aspects of the economy or transportation or energy. So it's been a great adventure. David Martin has helped me along the way to appreciate the true godly foundations of our nation. And so this is the book now, Resilient Nations, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you talk about, the tangibles and intangibles. It's almost like we get to keep enjoying the benefit of the tangibles because the previous generation got the intangibles right, and it almost takes a generation to realize you've lost those intangibles, and as a result, you're going to lose the tangible results, if that makes sense. And that's why getting back to this quickly is so important, because we have had a vacuum of understanding that foundation and those things that make us resilient.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Rick. Part of the purpose of Resilient Nations is to help provide intellectual capital, provide some ammunition to the people of our day to understand the life cycle of our very nation that has been resilient in its past, but now has started to decline significantly, I think. I tracked the spiritual infrastructure of the United States of America from the year 1740, before the founding, all the way up to present. And we were a pretty resilient nation to about 1960, and then we started going downhill with taking prayer out of schools, Bible out of schools, abortion, et cetera, et cetera. And then really when the Obama administration took over 2008, we really started falling off the cliff with a number of things that you so frequently talk about on this show.
What do you challenge people in the book to do? What is their role as a citizen to get engaged?
Yeah, well, I have mandates. I have 3 sets of mandates, and the mandates are for we the people, and then we the statesmen, and then the third mandate is for we the church. And on these mandates, I think as with citizens, we all have to make sure that our families and that our personal life are on track first. Secondly, I say that the importance of traditional family is critical. Now, I don't bash LGBT or anything to any degree in my work, but I do highlight that the traditional building block of society is the family, and we must have strong traditional families. We're getting away from that in America, and to our demise. Thirdly, for we the people, would be civic responsibility, people just standing up, people voting, people becoming informed voters. And then fourthly, I would say for we the people, it's cultural change agents. You know, you have the mountains of culture that many people talk about, of arts and entertainment, and then business and education and family and government and media and religion. And these 7 mountains of culture, all of us, usually most of us, live in one of those mountains of culture or more of them. And we need to bloom where we're planted, make a difference. And then finally, we need to be prayer warriors and merchants of hope. And it's real easy these days, Rick, to wring our hands and think that there's no hope. Let's just give up. But I disagree. I think there's tremendous hope. 1, because of God, the Father of our nation, and 2, because of we the people. There's a lot of people around this country that are fed up and that are willing to stand up, and they think there's hope, and I have hope because of them.
Well, that's part of why I love the way you've built it around the concept of resilience, because we do face huge challenges, and And you can understand when people only focus on the negative and they don't step back and look in the context of history where they might think there's no hope or that, it's too far gone. And part of what you do is you help us step back and look at the big picture and say, wait a minute, here's where we've been resilient in the past. These are the things we did to fix it. It can absolutely be done again, and it can be done in this generation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And part of this is the role of leadership. And so instead of referring to politicians, I refer to statesmen. I think that's a nobler term, if you will, for the type of leadership we need today. And I say first, our statesmen need to be selfless public servants. That's the model of Christ and beyond. And then they need to be guardians of truth. There are so many lies. They say the first casualty in war is the truth. And in our culture wars of today, there are so many lies that statesmen need to stand up to be counted. They need to be guardians of truth. And then they need to be what I call a principled collaborator for change. Sometimes, the word compromise has a bad connotation. But statesmen need to be willing. Jefferson and Madison and others, they certainly debated back and forth, and they had to compromise with one another, and it was to the good of our country. We have become so partisan these days that we are not willing to collaborate on behalf of positive change. So for we the statesmen, I think those are some mandates. And then finally, we the church, you're familiar with 2 Corinthians 7:14, and for us, we got to humble ourselves, pray, seek, and turn, and then, as it says, God will hear, forgive, and heal our land. So collectively, we the people, we the statesmen, and we the church all have roles to play in the spiritual rearmament of our country.
That's powerful, and I so appreciate what you're talking about with the collaboration side, because we do sometimes think that negotiating or getting half of what we really want is somehow failing or wimping out, and that is not the case. I love how Ronald Reagan always said, he was willing to take half of what he wanted today and come back and fight for more tomorrow. But that art of collaborating and negotiating, I try not to use the word compromise because it's been so twisted today to mean something it's not. But I appreciate you saying that, because that is something we're missing in our movement right now, is that willingness to say, hey, let's get the most we can today, and realize that in a republic like we have, we do have to negotiate and work with others that may not agree with us 100%. In fact, General, I don't know about you. I've yet to find anyone I agree with 100% or that I think is right 100% of the time, except probably my wife, because whether she's right or wrong, she's right. You understand.
You got it. Well, and under that thesis, we would never agree with anybody. We would never agree to cooperate with anybody, and we would never get anything accomplished.
Yeah.
Rick, one of the meaty parts of this Resilient Nations book, I look at the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that are set forth in our Declaration of Independence. And then I define a pervasive culture within each one of those. And under life, today in America, regrettably, we have a culture of violence and death. And you see it in our media and in our video games. And then you obviously see it in our adherence to abortion and potential euthanasia downstream. And then in our attacks against the traditional family. All of this is, pervasive, and we need to fight against that. And then liberty, I think we have a culture of appeasement. And appeasement plays out differently, both domestically and internationally. Appeasement domestically, we're always trying to give some largesse to some special interest group to buy their allegiance at the polls. And then internationally, you're familiar with Neville Chamberlain coming back, and he made a deal with the devil, Adolf Hitler, and in less than a year, Hitler had invaded, and World War II was in earnest. So we've got to quit appeasing people, both nationally and internationally.
No doubt. The Resilience Trilogy, the website, resiliencetrilogy.com, best place to go. You can get all three books right there. I guess the new one is it pre-order, or is it out yet?
It's out.
Now, you also did a study guide on the Warrior one, the first one. Is that designed for like a Sunday school or a group, having people into your home, or for classroom? What did you design that one for?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. It's an ideal thing for somebody that wants to work through it individually, to work with a battle buddy. and it becomes sort of a living will and testament of what are your actions on contact when you encounter trauma the next time, because we all get body slammed again and again. And then that study guide is also useful for groups. If you go on that website, resiliencetrilogy.com, under resources, the reader will find a number of different presentations to include a 10-week study series on resilient warriors that is synchronized with the study guide and the book. And so there's a lot of people around the country, a lot of churches, a lot of military bases that are using these lessons, to work through it together.
Excellent. All right, ResilienceTrilogy.com. Great guys doing the forwards for you as well. Mike Huckabee does one, Ollie North, Franklin Graham. Just a lot of great company there. General, always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you coming on. Let's get you back again soon.
Sounds good, Rick, and God bless you guys. Appreciate the work of WallBuilders.
That's General Bob Dees. Stay with us. Back in a moment with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the Cradle of Liberty and Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our Founding Fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Special thanks to General Bob Dees. Man, a wealth of information right there, and 3 great books to recommend to you on the Resilience Trilogy. But does this guy ever stop, David? What a great ministry. I mean, he's impacting things all over the place.
I mean, he has done so many things since he retired a decade ago from the military, and has done so many things to help with PTSD, to help with soldiers, to help with Microsoft and their defense divisions, just so many things. And I really, something he said really struck me. He said, we often don't know even the military folks that are serving around us. And he gave the example, the Iwo Jima veteran that the pastor didn't even know was in the church. Here's a veteran from Iwo Jima. And it reminded me of a couple Bible verses. Hebrews 11 talks about heroes among us, that oftentimes we have heroes among us. We're not even conscious of them. We don't even know they're there. Romans 13 talks about how that you can run into angels unawares because they just look like regular, ordinary people. And the programs we've had, Rick, over the last several years with veterans, they're just always average, ordinary people, but they've got such incredible stories. And it reminded me of a humorous story that deals with a Walmart greeter. Charlie was his name. He was a greeter at Walmart, and he just couldn't quite seem to get to work exactly on time. A few minutes late. But he's a really good worker, and he's really clean and just really sharp and real good mind and real credit for Walmart. And when people walked in, this greeter, and so, their older person-friendly policy they have. And so one day the boss was kind of in a quandary. How do you deal with a guy who's a few minutes late every day? And so he called Charlie into his office and said, Charlie, I really like you. You do a great job. You represent us well, but this late thing. And so Charlie says, yeah, I know. I'm working on it. And so his boss says, well, that's good. That's what I want to hear. But I don't quite understand you coming in late. I mean, you were with the armed forces. You were in the military. I mean, what did they tell you there when you came in late? And Charlie replied, well, they used to say, good morning, Admiral. Do you want tea or coffee this morning?
Yeah. I bet that was a little different.
Yeah, but it's a little different. But
the Admiral shows up when he wants.
And so we don't even he's just another greeter at Walmart,
And he's an Admiral.
You know,
wow.
I was at Tom Mullins, and Tom Mullins, we've had Tom on before, and he's a great guy. And I was at his church on this last 4th of July, and like so many churches, on the 4th of July, they'll have a patriotic thing, and so they'll have representatives out of the congregation be up on stage to represent the 5 forces, the 5 military forces. And so they were up on stage, and they were doing these tributes to the military and great songs, patriotic stuff. And, you know, it was impressive to look up there at those guys and see, and they all had their medals on and all those patches they wear over their breast pockets and all the things they have, the ribbons wrapped around their arms and the different colors. And, you know, it was all impressive, and everybody stood, standing ovation. But Kane, our kid who has had 3 tours in Iraq, Kane saw all those medals, and he goes, "Oh, my gosh, those aren't soldiers. They're soldiers." And those patches they were wearing, it said something to him that it didn't say to anybody else in that church, because he's in the military. He recognized what those awards were for and what these guys had done and how unique and rare and how literally, you know, just short of the Medal of Honor, patches that were Medal of Honor, you usually have to die to get that. And so some of these guys lived but got really close to Medal of Honor. And so we really do need to be aware of the folks that are around us and look for them and say thank you to them. Find out who they are. Get to know them. Get to know their life. Good guys don't talk about the good things they've done. Spend time with them. Get to know them. Tell them thank you.
That's awesome. Great stuff. Special thanks to General Bob Dees. Appreciate him joining us today. And especially thank you for listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.